A young graduate student married a 60-year-old influential businessman. A week later, she anxiously noticed heavy clouds gathering over the bustling metropolis in California. Gusts of wind swept dust through the streets. Sophia Miller hurried along the avenue, clutching a folder of documents tightly to her chest. At 24, she was struggling to finish her master's degree in economics, juggling studies with part-time jobs and repaying debts left after her father's death. The pressure on her grew heavier each day. The vibration of her phone in her bag snapped her back to reality. "Sophia Miller, speaking," she answered. A low, confident voice replied. "Miss Miller, this is Alexander Grayson. We need to discuss your financial situation." Sophia frowned. "Excuse me, who are you? How do you know about my affairs?" "I know enough," he interrupted calmly. "Meet me at Grayson Tower. 6 p.m. It's in your best interest." The call ended before she could object. Puzzled and wary, she headed toward the luxurious skyscraper. The cold wind pierced through her, and her light coat did little to protect her from the chill. In the lobby, she was greeted by soft lighting and the scent of expensive perfume. Alexander Grayson sat at a table, a distinguished man with silver at his temples, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. "Sophia," he said with a nod. His voice was commanding. Sophia sat across from him, trying to stay composed. "Mr. Grayson, why am I here?" "I appreciate your directness," he said, sipping his coffee. "I'm aware of your debts. You're cornered, and I can offer a way out." Sophia pressed her lips together. "What kind of way out?" He set down his cup, looking her directly in the eyes. "Marry me." The words sounded almost casual but carried weight. Sophia blinked in disbelief. "Excuse me, what?" "That's right. This is a proposal. Not of love. Of mutual benefit. I will take care of your debts and provide you with a comfortable future. In return, a marriage." Sophia smirked. "Why me? You don't even know me." Alexander leaned forward slightly. "You're young, intelligent, and desperate. I don't need emotions, Sophia. I need a life partner. Someone who will stand beside me without unnecessary obligations. This is a deal." Sophia frowned. "This sounds insane. What's in it for you?" A shadow of sadness flickered in his eyes. "I've been alone my whole life. I have no heirs. I need someone to whom I can pass on my business. A woman who will formally support me." Sophia abruptly stood up. "I need to think about it." "Think," he said calmly. "But there's not much time." At home, Sophia shared this with her younger sister, worried about their family's situation. Paying for school and their mother's medical treatment had become an unbearable burden. "Sophia," her sister said quietly, "maybe this is a chance. Maybe you should try." Sophia lowered her eyes. "You're suggesting I marry a stranger for money?" "I'm suggesting you save our family," her sister's voice trembled. The next morning, Sophia returned to Grayson Tower. Alexander was waiting. "Have you made a decision?" he asked. Sophia took a deep breath. "I agree." He nodded. "Excellent. Everything will be arranged." A week later, Sophia stood in a cozy city hall room in a modest dress Alexander had bought for her. The ceremony was simple, attended only by his lawyer and a notary. When they exchanged vows, Sophia felt an odd emptiness. Alexander gave a slight smile. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Grayson." Stepping out into the biting wind, Sophia glanced at her reflection in a storefront window and thought, "Did I save my family or lose myself?" The gates of Alexander's mansion slowly opened. The house loomed, modern and austere, just like its owner. Huge glass windows reflected the gray sky, making the building seem cold and distant. Sophia stepped out of the car, feeling like part of someone else's story. Alexander met her in the hall. "Welcome, Mrs. Grayson," His voice was distant, and Sophia felt a chill. Sophia's spine tensed. "I hope you'll feel comfortable here." "Dinner is at 7, Alexander said calmly. She silently nodded, following the housekeeper who led her to her room. The spacious room was luxuriously furnished, a king-size bed, antique furniture, and panoramic windows overlooking a meticulously maintained inner garden. Yet, despite the lavish decor, the room exuded a cold detachment, as if no one had set foot in it for a long time. That evening, Sophia sat tensely at the long dining table. Alexander sat at the far end, dressed in a flawlessly tailored suit. Dinner consisted of exquisite dishes prepared by a chef Sophia had yet to meet, served by silent servants. "Are you comfortable here?" Alexander asked, carefully slicing his steak with surgical precision. "It's unusual," Sophia replied cautiously. "This house is enormous. I feel like I could easily get lost." Alexander allowed a barely noticeable smile. "You'll get used to it. Or you won't. But that no longer matters." His words sent a slight shiver through her. "You haven't said much about your late wife." Alexander's knife froze mid-cut. He dabbed his lips with a napkin before responding. "She was a woman of strong character. Much like your mother, we both understood the cost of business. Their paths crossed, but not all meetings end well." Sophia's heart began to race. "What do you mean by that?" Alexander shot her a piercing look. "Some matters remain unresolved. But that's in the past. Soon, you'll understand why I chose you." His words unsettled Sophia. Later, wandering the endless corridors of the mansion, Sophia felt the oppressive silence. Occasionally, she heard the creak of floorboards, but the servants were barely visible. They avoided her gaze, whispering behind her back. Snippets of their conversations chilled her blood. Why her? Does she even realize what she's gotten into? He never does anything without a reason. She'll understand. They all do. One night, finding herself in the library, Sophia noticed a small antique key on Alexander's desk. Its unusual design caught her attention. Glancing around quickly, she picked it up. It was cold and heavy. Could this key open one of those locked doors? That night, lying in the luxurious yet foreign room, Sophia turned the key over in her hands. One question echoed in her mind. What is Alexander hiding? And why does he need me? Swallowed by the night's stillness, Sophia cautiously made her way to an old door in one of the hallways. The key in her hand seemed to grow heavier. She glanced back and slowly inserted it into the lock. The click echoed through the emptiness. The door creaked open. The room was a sealed-off past. Dusty furniture, old photographs. In the pictures were a young Alexander, his wife, and a couple of unfamiliar faces. On the desk, Sophia noticed a stack of documents. As she flipped through them, a chill seeped into her bones. They were legal papers detailing failed business deals between her mother and Alexander's wife. Among them stood out a letter filled with accusations of deceit and betrayal. "You ruined my life. I lost everything because of your lies." Sophia clenched the papers when she noticed a marriage certificate. Her name and Alexander's were printed on the document. The date was set weeks before their wedding, long before they had even met. On the desk lay an old journal. Sophia opened it. The entries were Alexander's. They described a carefully crafted plan to marry Sophia as part of his revenge. "I will take everything from her, just as her mother took everything from me. She will become my pawn." Sophia froze when she heard the creak of the door behind her. "Do you like what you see?" Alexander's icy voice shattered the silence. Sophia spun around, gripped by fear. "Alexander, this. Looking for answers?" He stepped forward, his silhouette stark against the dim light. "Curiosity is a dangerous trait, Sophia. What do you think you're doing?" She struggled to speak. Is this because of my mother? Is this revenge? A cold glint flickered in his eyes, his calm facade beginning to crack. Maybe. But now, you've gone too far. Alexander smirked coldly, crossing his arms. That's none of your business, Sophia. Follow the rules, and you'll come out of this in a much better position. Isn't that enough? Sophia clenched her fists, feeling anger rise within her. Enough? You deceived me, used me. This isn't a marriage, it's a trap. Alexander's lips curled into a thin smile. A trap? You signed the papers yourself. You should have thought before agreeing. He slowly stepped closer. You think you're smarter than everyone else, Sophia. But you're just like your mother, blind to the consequences. A chill ran down Sophia's spine. If you hated my mother so much, why take it out on me? I'm not responsible for her actions. Alexander paused for a moment, his gaze turning glassy. You have no idea how deeply you're involved in this. It's best to stay away from matters that don't concern you. He turned sharply and left, leaving Sophia in oppressive silence. Later that night, Sophia lay sleepless, replaying his words in her mind. Why had he dragged her into this game? Was this just revenge? Her attention was caught by a voice outside the door. Quiet but firm. Make sure the transfer is completed, Alexander said. She won't escape now. Time is running out. Sophia froze. What was he planning? Realizing she was trapped, Sophia felt the luxurious house close in on her like a prison. The next morning, she approached the butler, Mr. Wilson, who seemed to be waiting for her. Mr. Wilson, tell me the truth. Something is going on here. Wilson looked at her, his face calm. I knew you would ask. But I advise you to be careful, Mrs. Grayson. Alexander is a man who doesn't forgive mistakes. Sophia shuddered. Then why are you still here if you know what he's capable of? A shadow of sadness crossed his face. Some of us can't leave. Sophia realized she had to act. She contacted her lawyer friend, Emma. Emma, tell me, can a contract signed under pressure be annulled? Possibly, if there's proof. Sophia, are you okay? For now, she whispered. Sophia decided to search Alexander's study. Late at night, she found an old envelope addressed to her mother. Inside was a letter filled with rage and accusations. You ruined my life. I will have my revenge. This wasn't just about reclaiming lost money. This was a thirst for vengeance. Sophia understood Alexander was using her in his elaborate plan. She decided to escape. But Alexander seemed to sense her intentions. The next morning, he spoke during breakfast. You tried to find something, didn't you? Sophia froze, unable to speak. Don't play games with me. I won't tolerate betrayal. He stood and slowly approached her. Try to run, and you'll regret it. Sophia knew that one wrong move could cost her freedom, or even her life. Staying here meant becoming part of Alexander's twisted plan forever, a fate Sophia couldn't accept. The air in the old Victorian house felt heavy, thick with mustiness and secrets. Outside, an autumn storm raged, branches scraping against the windows as if trying to break in. A private investigator Sophia had secretly hired had just left, leaving behind a report full of shocking facts. Victoria Grayson, Alexander's late wife, hadn't just been a victim of fraud. Her tragic death in a car accident happened shortly after Sophia's mother destroyed the Grayson business through a series of dishonest deals. This betrayal had driven Alexander to craft his revenge, planned down to the smallest detail. But marrying Sophia wasn't just a move in his game. It was a cunning way to strike at the family he blamed for ruining his life. Sophia clenched her teeth, cold anger gripping her. How can he put the blame on me, she thought. Yet, as much as she raged, she couldn't help but wonder what pain had driven Alexander down this path. That night, Sophia met Emma at a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. Thunder rumbled outside, heightening the tension. "Look at this," Sophia laid out photos and documents. "All this ties Alexander to illegal schemes. He used shell companies to recover his lost fortune." Emma frowned as she flipped through the papers. "This is enough to start an investigation." "But Sophia, if he senses a threat, he might go to extremes." Sophia nodded. "I can't keep living in fear. It's time to end this." Returning to the mansion, Sophia went up to Alexander's study. This time, she didn't hide. When he entered, his wet coat still dripping onto the floor, she was already waiting. "We need to talk." Alexander gave her a cold glance. "About what, exactly?" Sophia pulled a folder from her bag. "I know everything. About my mother. About Victoria. About your schemes." Alexander's face remained stone-like, but his eyes flickered. "You've been snooping into my affairs? You destroyed my life because you couldn't let go of the past." "But I'm not my mother." Alexander slowly approached her. "My family lost everything. Victoria died because of your family's greed. Don't lecture me." Sophia stepped forward. "And you think destroying my life will change anything? You're becoming just like her." A flicker of doubt crossed his eyes, but he quickly regained his cold expression. Before he could reply, the doorbell echoed through the house. Sophia smirked slightly. "I think that's for you." Detectives entered the room with a warrant for arrest. One of them spoke. "Mr. Grayson, you're under arrest for fraud and extortion." Alexander slowly turned to Sophia. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Revenge doesn't end so easily." Sophia met his gaze calmly. "Maybe. But you won't be living by it anymore." As he was led away, Sophia felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Yet deep down, a fear stirred. Was this truly the end, or just the beginning of another chapter? Years later, passing by that same old house, now empty and abandoned, Sophia paused briefly. The house stood as a grim monument to pain and destruction. She whispered softly, "It's time to leave the past behind." And with a lighter heart, she walked on, knowing she had chosen freedom. A few days later, Sophia was invited to the mansion one last time. The once grand and somber house now seemed empty and lifeless. Anticipating his departure, Alexander had arranged for the property ownership to be transferred to her. The lawyer handed Sophia an envelope containing a letter, written in Alexander's neat handwriting. "It was never about the money, Sophia. It was about closure. Victoria deserved justice, but I lost sight of what truly mattered. You reminded me of something I had long forgotten, the possibility of moving forward. This house is no longer a monument to my pain. It can become something more. Use it wisely." It wasn't hard for Sophia to part with the mansion. Its luxury felt like the same gilded cage it had become for Alexander. The money from its sale allowed her to clear her family's debts and finally free her younger sister from financial worries. With the remaining funds, Sophia established the Victoria Grayson Scholarship Fund. It became a way to honor the memory of the woman who had unintentionally become a victim of the feud between two families. Returning to university felt like returning to life for Sophia. Now she was determined to use her knowledge for good. She interned at a legal aid center, helping people who, like Alexander, had become trapped by their own mistakes and by the injustices of others. One cool autumn morning, Sophia received a letter. The handwriting was instantly recognizable. She sat on a park bench near campus and slowly unfolded the paper. "Sophia, I've had a lot of time to think. For years, I believed revenge would heal the wounds left by Victoria's death. But now I understand. Revenge is a prison. Your kindness, despite my mistakes, showed me something I didn't expect. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's strength. Thank you for being above this world. Thank you for showing me that we can break the chains of the past. I hope you find the happiness I was never destined to experience. Alexander. Sophia stared at the letter for a long time, absorbing every word. Then she carefully folded it and placed it in her pocket, feeling an unexpected sense of calm. A year after Alexander's arrest, Sophia stood before an audience of students at the scholarship award ceremony. Behind her hung a modest plaque. The Victoria Grayson Scholarship Fund, a second chance. Sophia spoke with confidence. This fund is not just about finances. It's an opportunity for those standing on the edge. It's a way to turn pain into hope. After the ceremony, Sophia lingered alone for a moment, reflecting on the turbulent events of the past year. Her life had changed forever, but for the first time, she felt she was on the right path. She left the ceremony with a gentle smile. Looking up at the clear sky, Sophia felt the weight of the past finally lift from her shoulders. Alexander's letter remained in her pocket, a quiet reminder of the power of forgiveness, justice, and the strength to change.